Hi, this is Jim Hamilton with Core Resonance. I want to welcome you to my next video as it is associated with my newsletters. If you've been following, my latest newsletters revolve around core resonance colonies. Core resonance colonies actually has a foundation with the ideas of the Declaration of Independence. Even the people, when we left Great Britain and came over here to America, we started out as colonies, and colonies is how things start. Core resonance colonies is a consciousness thing where we're going to create beachheads of an outpost for, I'll say new thought, but what we really want to do is advance consciousness work such that we are influential all over the planet. The fifth premise of core resonance colonies is the Maharishi effect, which you may be familiar with. Maharishi effect was first proposed by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the yogi that was made popular by the Beatles in the early 60s. And one of the things he projected was that 1% of the population would have a powerful influence on the surrounding area. And it's turned out to be true. There are a number of studies, many studies now. The TM people and John Hagelin, who once ran for president, he's a physicist as well, has done a massive amount of research on meditators and their capacity to influence. For example, in 1993, 4,000 meditators descended on Washington, D.C., and were there for a period of 7 weeks. Washington, D.C. is known, and particularly was known, as a very high crime rate, a lot of murder, a lot of rape, a lot of mayhem. And as this demonstration went on, and of course there were a lot of scholars, a lot of sociologists, a lot of psychologists and different people, not only watching this event, but also posing their questions beforehand and making sure that everything was understood. As the 7 weeks concluded, which is the time that most of the meditators showed up, so let's say the very last week was the most meditators of the whole 7 weeks, crime dropped 23.5% in Washington, D.C. Now, of course, this is a really big deal, and they allowed for temperature, they allowed for weather, they allowed for all kinds of variables, and for a bunch of people sitting there with their eyes closed meditating, I like to tease sometimes, I say humming, it's the capacity to be influential is huge. And this is what core resonance colonies is about, is getting small groups of 6 together, using core resonance training, becoming coherent individually, becoming coherent as a group, and reaching out into the cosmos and grounding solutions into this dimension. The universe is ever unfolding, and it unfolds in a solutions orientation. This planet unfolds in a solutions orientation, and other than the humans, the planet does fine. And so what our real goal here is to get the humans back in sync with this overall unfolding that everything else naturally enjoys and explores and is a recipient of. And so the idea is to quiet your nervous system, to re-enable your natural state of connection with the cosmos, and to be a means by which solutions are delivered into this dimension. Meditation has been this process for many years. Meditation is simple. The problem with meditation is it takes a long time, and some people will argue that it doesn't, and that's fair. But core resonance training is very quick. I've got 40 years of meditation myself. I've been playing with neurofeedback now since 2006 or 2007. And when I started doing neurofeedback, they had a vast impact on me to the point of having to figure out what happened. And what I realized, I was starting to access non-resistance, and in non-resistance, my reality creating was starting to show up differently. And as you come to understand how all of this works, as we quiet our nervous systems, as we knock down the static and noise in the brain and the mind, this subtle connection with source becomes evident, and we can build on it. And as we do, we enable our natural state of connection. And in so doing, there comes a point where innate guidance shows up in the process and takes over the processing of the world on our behalf. In other words, our brain is insufficient as a processor in the first place, and which I talk about in other videos and other newsletters. But the idea is that as we quiet down and allow innate intelligence to flow through us, we become in step with the synchronicity, harmony, and order of the universe unfolding. We become valuable as a species on this planet. And so core resonance colonies is about creating outposts all over the world of groups of 6 meditating, using core resonance training, quieting the nervous system, and becoming a host for innate intelligence to deliver solutions into this dimension. And what makes the Maharishi effect so interesting is that it proves that by becoming internally coherent, that doing so in a group, we become exponentially powerful. Now, there's another component of all this, and you're probably familiar with Dr. David Hawkins' work in his first, not his first book, but his first in a series, Power versus Force. And in that book, he issued a map, and the map is called the Map of Consciousness. Map of Consciousness is going to be one of the premises. In fact, I think it's about looks like it's number 9, so it's still about a month and a half away before I write about it. But Dr. David Hawkins with kinesiology discovered or documented the fact that as you become more conscious, you become exponentially more contributive. Now, what that means is one person on the map at 700 counterbalances the negativity of 70 million people below 200. Admittedly, 700 is a very high number, it's beginning states of enlightenment. But one person at 600, which is very readily attainable with core resonance training, one person at 600 counterbalances the negativity of 10 million people below 200. One person at 500 counterbalances the negativity of 750,000, and on and on. Now, the states below 200 are apathy, fear, grief, anxiety, rage, up through pride. And you can tell that reality creating, based on those kinds of catalysts or that kind of mentality and thinking, is poor quality reality creating. So one person in advanced consciousness has a huge influence on the whole. It kind of throws out the 51% of the vote idea. As we become more conscious, we become more contributive. And of course, as we group together and become more conscious, we become even more exponentially contributive. And this is what core resonance colonies is about. Real quick, I have a couple of programs out there. One is Personal Sovereignty and Advanced Contribution for a World in Need of a Few Good Ideas. It is a study group. It's a half year long. We meet every other week for 26 weeks, so a total of 13 weeks. And what we do is we go into depth on the premises, and of course these are all individual. And by the way, this is rotational, so you can step into it anytime and drop out of it anytime. You can stay for 13 weeks, you can stay for a year and a half, you can stay for 3 weeks, whatever you'd like to do. There's a cost associated with it. And speaking of cost, there's a program I offer that's free. It's called Free Selling the Keys to the Universe. It's based on a card game on the computer called Free Cell. And the idea is when you're playing the game, as you start to lose the game, if you will walk away from the game and come back, you'll see moves that you didn't see. After all, if you're losing the game, you're not seeing moves. And what the real idea is that everything is in front of us if but we could see it. And as we become more conscious and as we relax and slow down, the natural state of abundance that's in the universe becomes available to us. And this is how we're going to change the world. We need to be able to see the bigger picture. We need to plug into the bigger picture. We need to be able to partner with innate intelligence expressing. We need to become a host for innate intelligence, delivering solutions into this dimension. It's what core resonance is all about. It's what core resonance colonies is all about. And one day I'll introduce you guys to Taproot, my core resonance, which is for intentional communities and intentional corporations. I'm going to go. I want to wish you well. Lots of love. Namaste.